Hello, I'm Angela Faith, shamanic practitioner and mentor, and I trust you are doing well this day. I wanted to take a moment and speak to you today about boundaries. This topic has come up in a couple of conversations I've had, and 'tis the season, right, for reviewing our boundaries. It's a time of holidays. People are getting together, maybe that you don't see that often. And all year long, I hear people talking about boundaries, and I want to speak on an approach to that may support you. First of all, I invite you to drop boundaries. You're like, what? I need boundaries. Yeah, okay. I want you to change your perception or your approach. Rather than a boundary is a line in the sand, if you will, it's a resistance to something. So rather than saying I have boundaries, I invite you to say, I lean into my highest good. I make myself a priority. I make my highest good a priority. I seek meaningful conversations rather than I'm not going to talk about that. Say, I'm going to talk about things that excite me. I'm going to talk about things that are loving rather than I'm not going to talk about X, Y, and Z. Do you feel the difference? I'm going to rather than I'm not going to. Just a shift in wording. But also another thing about boundaries, because I understand that we can say, I've set a boundary that I don't want this to happen. So a boundary is not an opportunity to dictate how someone else behaves or performs. It's an opportunity to decide how I am going to participate in any behavior or relationship. An example, you and I are friends and you keep calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, that's not too early for me, but say you keep calling me. Well, that's during my morning ritual. Okay, I've told you, friend, don't call me during my morning ritual. That's one approach. But you get busy with your day and you just something happens and you're excited to share it with me and you call me and it's during the time I told you not to. And I could get angry and say, "Well, I set a boundary and you're not respecting my boundaries." It's one approach. Or I could say, I'm only going to answer my phone after 8 a.m. when my morning ritual is complete. And you're like, okay. And then the next day you forget and something exciting happens and you call me before that time. Guess what I do? I don't answer. I call you later. I call you back. I don't get angry that you didn't respect my boundary. I stop answering. You'll get the point. If I tell someone that I'm going to visit, I have an option. Don't talk to me about politics. That's one approach. And then in the conversation, they may accidentally, because if there's someone that's very caught up in politics, they may just, not be able to help themselves. So I have an option. I can get angry and say, you're not respecting my boundary. Or I can remove myself from the conversation and not participate and not get mad. And I could also come in and say, I'm only going to, let's talk about things that are neutral. Let's have neutral conversations. I'm here for a good time and neutral conversations. And if someone isn't able to do that, I don't have to get angry that my boundary has been crossed. I can simply use my free will and not participate or remove myself, walk outside. But boundaries is not an invitation to impose on someone else's free will. I trust that this will make some sense. And I want to touch just briefly on avoiding people. Again, 'tis the season. Well, I'm not going there for Christmas because they're toxic or I just don't like the way I feel. Well, let me tell you something. If someone triggers you in such a way, I encourage you to delve into, see what's coming up for you. Avoidance is not healing. It's very different to say, I can't go around someone than saying, I choose not to go around someone. If I am, let me slow myself down. So part of my practice is, and my understanding is that all relationships are sacred. None are accidental. So If I avoid someone just because I don't like the way I feel around them, I could be avoiding the healing that I need to address in my own self. And then I can choose not to go around them. Now, let me clarify. I am not at all saying that you need to go around someone that is violent to you or puts your life in danger or your well being in danger. But we also live in a culture that this um, withholding love and just I'm just not talking to them is gotten to be too much of an easy um, option. I see it a lot. I see it a lot. And as a shamanic practitioner, people will come to me wanting to cut cords. And I do, that is part of a shamanic healing. It can be a cord cutting, but I do not, I honor the relationships and what teachings are coming from them. So I support in understanding that before, and then we can cut the cord and clean up the energy there, if that makes sense. So be mindful if you are going around a lot of family that challenges you. There are some things that you can do besides avoidance, because avoidance can also be isolating. And maybe there's someone there you do want to see, and you're avoiding 3 people and you don't get to see the one that you really want to see. It's empowering to be able to go anywhere you want to. When I was learning how to live alcohol and substance free, one of the things that I was taught is if I am spiritually fit, I can go anywhere. Well, that doesn't just apply to alcohol and substances. That applies to people. If I am spiritually fit, I can go anywhere. I can be love if I'm not needing it and seeking it from everyone I encounter. Again, I'm not putting myself in danger. I'm not saying to go hang around with someone that's going to knock you through the wall. But there are, again, we cut people, not we, let me rephrase that. Let me just stop talking there and shift gears a little bit. So leaning into what you desire, exploring the relationships with curiosity, exploring the gatherings for the holidays with curiosity, and take care of yourself. Decide before you go, how am I going to participate? How long am I going to stay? That's a big one. Are you staying out of obligation all day, or could you make an appearance and park on the street and leave when the conversation gets heavy, or when you feel that you are ready to leave? Remember that you are safe. A lot of times we set boundaries to feel protected. And this is another thing about setting so many boundaries. We can bound ourselves up so that we're not receiving or giving love. We're always so guarded that nothing can get in or get out. Take care of yourself before you go to the family gathering or have people come over or whatever it is that you're doing. And before you get in the situation, I invite you to prepare, ground, shield, protect. I'll share this briefly. It was taught to me by a lady at a gathering I went to. It was called Wisdom of the Elders. It was before the pandemic, so I'm guessing it was in 2019. And it was a weekend gathering of just that, elders from different traditions. And it was just a beautiful spiritual weekend. There was a woman there that had been a nun for 50 years. And she left the convent and she went back to the indigenous teachings and shamanic teachings and ways of being. But she taught me something that I use still today, and I teach it to others, a quick way to ground, shield, and protect. And when I say protect, I am grounding and shielding and protecting so that I can go in and be observant and be love, be kind, not so boundaried and defensive and shielded. So it's just standing, and ideal is standing outside, and you can close your eyes and just take a deep breath, and standing with your hands palms down, on palms facing the earth. So your hands are down to your side, palms facing down, and you begin to feel the energy between your palms and the earth. And if you can't feel it, just know that it's there. Imagine that it's there. And then scooping out in front of you and then coming up in front of your face and over your head. So in the palms down, I'm grounding. Now I'm pulling that earth energy up in front of me. And now I am shielding. And now I'm pulling my hands down, pulling the energy from above down in front of me and coming back to where I started with my palms down. And now I'm protected, grounded, shielding, protected. All right. So that's another great technique to use as you are going into gatherings that you may feel are heavy or toxic or challenging. Empower yourself. When you can show up with love, in love, when you can take accountability for your participation. I once had someone that kept calling me, and I told my mentor, I was like, I told him to quit calling and he keeps calling. She's like, quit answering. But I was conditioned to feel all the things. Well, I need to answer. It's rude not to answer, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't taking account of, I was dictating how that person needed to act, and they weren't performing the way I wanted them to. I was going about it the wrong way. When I quit answering the phone, eventually they quit calling. But see, then I had to change my behavior. And isn't that something? It's easy to want someone else to change so that I don't have to. And I need to be careful that that's not what my boundaries are, and a dictation of how other people need to behave so I don't have to change my behavior. I just need to be aware of that, because that's a trap. That's a trap I can set for myself. Remember that you are safe, you are supported, and you are love. You are. I love you, and I'm wishing you an easy, easy holiday season. Take care.